Welcome back to a Brewery Explorers Podcast. My name is Noah Jones, and I am joined, as always, by my favorite drinking buddies, Eric Burgasser and Blake Longfellow. Boys, how are we doing?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Blake, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
We got to go and visit you, sort of do a small tour to Dayton, and I had a great time, and I know that you did too. What was your favorite brewery that we went to?
Fortunately, my favorite brewery I went to, you guys weren't with me, was Branch and Bone.
Oh,
Their
nice.
beers are always solid and nice. And
Gotcha.
yeah. And I got experience something a little bigger the last Saturday with it was a cask ale festival by Second Shift Brewing out of St. Louis, Missouri, where they brought all these brewers in. They had these different casks and barley wines and different stuff. It was so neat.
Very cool.
That sounds really
It's
cool.
one of the. I've been to different beer festivals, but I've never been to a beer festival where you paid one entry fee, then they gave you a glass and just said, "Good luck, go try whatever you want to do. How much you want, it's up to you." It's like, I bet Ohio could never do that.
That's awesome.
That's really funny. Eric, you went
Hello.
to Nashville recently. We both missed National Chili Day, which is
We did.
very, very rare for both of us who are huge Skyline Chili fans.
I know. I was actually in a guitar shop, and the one guy, he came up to us, the salesman. He's like, "Where are you guys from?" And I was like, "Oh, we're from the Cincinnati area." He's just like, "I need you to come over here and see this." So he took us over to his work desk, and he had a can of Skyline Chili there. He said,
wow.
"Yep." He said him and his wife used to tour play around Cincinnati all the time.
Wow.
So
Well,
he
that
still
was
had a love for Skyline Chili, and I was like, "I'm missing it this weekend with it being the week, you know." But still had a great time.
That's too bad. And I'm wondering if our guest is a Skyline Chili fan. He's one of the newest hires for Sonder Brewing. He's the director of brewing operations at Sonder Brewing. He's a content creator, and his name is Adam Mills. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I feel a little bad. I moved to Ohio in 2020, and I was unversed in first of all, what Cincinnati chili is. The first time I ordered it, I was working long hours helping to get Cartridge Brewing off the ground. My wife texted me and asked what I wanted for dinner. The kids wanted to go to Skyline. And so I said, "Get me a bowl of chili." Now I'm realizing that was the wrong thing to do, because when I posted a picture, of that bowl of chili in the newly minted company Slack, the thing blew up, and they told me how I was living my life wrong.
Oh, no.
And
What did you
all
order
the various
specifically?
ways. It was literally just a bowl of chili.
Oh,
and
like
it was
no
there was
noodles
not,
or-
yeah. There was nothing else involved, and they were thoroughly disappointed in me.
Oh yeah.
Well, my dad gets it with a baked potato, which I see now would be really good for people who are gluten intolerant. And they also do like chili cheese fries, which is an incredible and very obvious sort of spin-off of Skyline Chili. But I've always been a chili four-way fan with bean.
Regular three-way for me.
Yeah.
Always like 3 cheese conies with everything on it, cheese fries.
Cheese fries. Blake always has the cheese fries.
Yes,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. So, Adam, tell us a little bit about sort of what you do here as a director of brewing operations at Sonder Brewing. What are some of your responsibilities here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's a little different when you're typically when I've started at places, it's very early on. There's a lot of recipe creation and everything like that. But coming into Sonder is a really, it's a well-established, smooth running machine. Chase Legler, one of the founders and main brewer here, he came from New Glarus. And just has a really, really great background on the operations side, from an engineering standpoint and an equipment standpoint. And so I was coming into a situation where there wasn't some like massive emergency to fix, right? So really what it is it's a little bit more of I'm going to be I'm taking some of the things off of his plate as far as people management, and then also developing kind of a path, a training path, growth path for our employees as we continue to grow, onboard people and things like that.
So is it sort of like is it a brand new position then, or is it?
Yeah, he actually hired me into his old.
I see.
His old title.
Gotcha.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So it sounds like you're sort of responsible in or at least tasked with creating like a growth plan for the future of Sonder. It's like make sure that it continues growing.
Yeah, and especially from a staffing perspective.
Gotcha.
So I'm spending a lot of time on, well, one, I'm spending about half my time on the floor actually doing brewing work, whether I'm on the brew deck or in the cellar. And then beyond that, kind of looking at our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, and developing some training manuals and potentially some training videos that would accompany those, because that's really the heart and soul of what we're doing. You know, the main idea is we should all be replicating a task the way that Chase would. Right, because Chase was doing all the things at first when they opened, and now when you start adding staff, you need to be able to multiply those people that carry out duties in that way. And it's one of the main, drivers behind quality, right?
Right.
You know, so yeah.
So for the people that don't really know Sonder, what do you know the background? Know how they got started and why they chose Mason as their very first hub?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jen, Justin, and Chase ended up starting Sonder. And as I mentioned before, so Chase came from New Glarus, so Wisconsin, moved here. That's why, we have a beer called You Betcha and stuff like that. But Chase had a really fascinating path in the industry with New Glarus. I believe at the time, and maybe still, New Glarus is just distributed in Wisconsin, but it's got quite a reputation. It's always fun to be able to get your hands on their beers.
Blake and I have had a supplier take it across state lines for us.
Definitely.
Spotted Cows is definitely one of my favorite cream meals.
Oh yeah. They make great beer, and so Chase started right after high school and then worked there his entire brewing career and just worked his way up the ladder from sweeping floors and tail end stuff of the canning line and all the way up to lead brewer, and that's what gave him the skill set to do this. And so they ended up connecting with Jen and Justin, who were in the area here, and they figured they'd give it a go. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm thirsty, and we have this beautiful flight in front of us. Can we start with the first beer?
Yeah, the first beer is Voss. Voss is a German-style Kolsch. Just kind of a little background on it. There's the yeast strain used to ferment Kolsch is sometimes known as a hybrid strain, and it's really because it's kind of halfway between a lager strain and an ale strain. So your ales are going to want to be in the upper 60 degrees F, lager strains closer to 50. But this is done high 50s, low 60s. Okay. And it produces a very clean, crisp lager-like beer. And it has its own unique profile. It's just a classic beer, and it's a palate for some other beers that we do. We also have before I worked here, the beer I would always order when I came in was Cato, which is a coffee version of this. And
very, very good.
I always loved it because and especially as a brewer myself coming in, the coffee is so bright. I always like that fresh bag of coffee aromatic that you get off that.
They own or they partners with the coffee company?
Partnered with Script.
Okay, I've had their coffee before because I'm a journalist at heart. So I thought that it was really fun to drink Script coffee as I was writing podcast scripts for Audible. But yeah, no, I mean, I really like their beer. I got it at Coffee Fest or whatever it's called, the coffee festival downtown in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we do a wide range of things, and we've got a pretty fun lineup today. We've starting off with Kolsch, we got a little Bock, we've got our hazy IPA, and then a fun double barrel aged barley wine coming up. So we'll have some good things to talk about.
Definitely excited about that one.
Yeah,
for sure.
We knew you would be.
What was your introduction to the craft beer world?
Yeah, so for me, I started home brewing. My wife and I, when we were newly married, we started doing an Oktoberfest party just because, it's kind of getting into holiday season. It was a good way to get friends together, right? As opposed to you have all these obligations to family. Yeah. And
was
so
this in Michigan?
Yeah.
Michigan?
Yep. Back in Michigan. And so after one of those, the rule was bring some German food and bring some German beer. And that was, do your thing. And then we were talking as my friends were going out the door one Oktoberfest. My buddy said, you should make the beer for next year's. And that had never dawned on me. And there was a great homebrew shop in the Grand Rapids area called Siciliano's. And you could go in there and get hooked up with everything. And I found out that I could do homebrewing competitions and I could judge beer. And I was hooked.
And Grand Rapids is just like, it's a great, if you want beer, it's a great place to go.
Yeah. Grand Rapids has a great scene. Yeah. Grand Rapids is a great beer scene. Absolutely.
So let's also talk about the Adam Makes Beer content that you do. I'm assuming that that's separate than Sonder, but I saw it all over your LinkedIn page. So talk to us a little bit about your thoughts about that.
So in 2020, I decided to start recording in brewery educational brewing content, because when I moved here, I kind of lost my network of people in the industry that I was, at least geographically close to. And so I started going to YouTube because, really, YouTube is essentially Google at this point for finding out how to do things. And there just wasn't a lot of what I was looking for. And I thought that there was space, that there was space to actually make that content, and that there may be some demand for it. And also it scratched an itch for me because the first 10 years of my career, I was a teacher. I taught high school social studies to at-risk kids for 10 years. And it was kind of a fit. And I wanted to be able to show, the behind the scenes. I wanted to feel like you were doing like a brewer for the day experience. And the response has been really positive. I talk to, when I go to conferences, a lot of new people coming into the industry have found it helpful and useful. It's a real passion project for me, both when I was working at Cartridge at the time. So if you see in brewery content on my channel, it is at Cartridge, and I've done a little bit here at Sonder, but not that much. And then that kind of expanded into a couple of monthly live streams. So with the live stream Q&A, pro brewers and home brewers will give me questions, and we just talk for a couple hours, doing Q&A. And then I do a monthly industry pro interview where I talk to another brewer. It's just one of those things, like, what we love to do is have a beer, talk about it, and get into the nitty gritty stuff. And I remember thinking years ago, like, I feel like there's some value to that. Just a couple of brewers talking about how they're accomplishing what they are in that beer. And
especially
so that's where that
nowadays,
came from.
I think definitely. It's good to, I think, at least from an authority standpoint, have that as like content that you can prove to people that you know what you're doing stuff,
And also, I think also it helps maybe start someone that's just starting out. Because I've homebrewed here and there, sometimes I got questions and stuff, and sometimes your best source is just asking a brewer, hey, what would you do at this point? And, even though I don't do it nearly as much as I would love to.
Sure.
But it's just something that's been a neat hobby of mine. Of course, I'm the beer guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It fits right in what I do, but I enjoy it.
Last time we spoke to Jared with Alematic, and he said, one of the biggest mistakes that homebrewers make is they over brew, or not over brew in like an over baking type of way, but they do too many steps trying to be too fancy or too cute. Yeah. And I think that learning from like real brewers that's not what you do can be really impactful for someone who thinks they're doing something right, but maybe they're putting in too much effort that they don't need to do that. You know what I mean?
Especially from a recipe standpoint. I think sometimes we get like this beautiful complex beer in front of us, and then you see all the ingredients you can use, and you end up using some sort of kitchen sink type thing when really you can actually go, far more austere in your recipe creation. And those subtleties will just express themselves, so gotcha. Yeah.
So as the director of brewing operations, you probably don't do much actual brewing here, do you?
I do.
Oh, okay, great.
I still do days on the brew deck, and still very hands on. Probably about half of my time, I'm actually working on the floor in the brewery, and then the other half I'm doing some managerial things.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. Very cool.
I gotta imagine that's something that you like doing too. Like I'm assuming once you got the niche to brew, you kind of just want to keep doing it, or is it times you get tired of it? Or
well, I mean,
have a balance.
Well, sure, and at this point too, I'm 46, and what we do is manual labor. Know, and so it is nice to not full time, always be doing, I've got some guys down there that I work with that are
rest the lower back
that are like 20 years younger than me. And I was just realizing, I'm like, that's like a whole nother lifetime of somebody that it can almost drink legally. And that's how much younger they are than me. So it is nice to be able to do that. But then, the flip side is and one of the things that I really enjoy, and I think also goes back to the teaching element too. I also like to help people to try to have a bigger understanding of, if you want this to be your job, it can be your job. But if you want to make this a career, you have to approach this a certain way. Right. And so, and then I also take that tact with my YouTube channel as well.
And also,
I was actually going to say it's a great sort of transition from teaching in school to being able to do that with.
Yeah, because I mean that's the stuff that's actually satisfying,
right?
You know what I mean? Like I always thought when I first started doing it, well, I want to make great beer, I want to win awards, and then that's like the end goal. And you can get really unhappy in a hurry with that as your goal. But when you actually realize, oh well, I'm helping to train people into this industry. I'm helping people with their career outlook. That's far more satisfying at the end of the day than. The human aspect of it,
So with Cincinnati University coming on with their home brewing, do you see a mixture of people that are still home brewers getting into breweries, or is people going straight to college for this, or is it the even balance?
Yeah, it's an interesting industry because there is such a heavy apprenticeship type overtone to being able to get in. You know what I mean? If you're willing to go ground level and work your way up, there's a lot of breweries that will hire like that. I think that it's always helpful to have made beer out at home, because you're especially from the recipe development standpoint, because that's when you're going to be trying on your own different ingredients, understanding those. You'll be able to understand what the brewery itself is making and what those things do, but to have the real ability to experiment and learn on a deeper level, it does help to homebrew. Obviously, there's a lot of brewing programs that have popped up all over the U.S. And I think that there's definitely benefit to that as well. There are some places that do want you to have some level of education. I've always encouraged people that if you have the ability to get in ground floor, it's good to at least get paid for a while to find out if this is where you want to be, because that is. You never want to be in a situation where you're at the end of your degree and you realize that you don't want to be doing this for a living. So if you can get some on the job training, if you can actually make money while you're finding out if you want to be on that path, I think that's smart too. But I would never tell anybody that's a bad idea to go the education route either.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm very pro being paid for your work too. So
yeah,
I like that a lot. So the weather outside is warm. I didn't wear a coat today for the first time since the ball dropped in January. That's for sure. But that also means that it's now getting close to March. This is our March episode for Bock Festival.
Nice.
And, Sonder is, Sonder was a sponsor last year of Bock Festival. BockFest is how the real people call it. But you aren't sponsoring it this year, but you guys are still making William Goat,
yep.
which is the next beer on our flight. And I was really hoping you could sort of talk to us a little bit about what BockFest is and sort of help people understand what it is, because I'm not from Cincinnati. I didn't grow up drinking Bock beer, but here we are drinking it now.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of passion for Bock beer around Cincinnati, and not being from the area myself, it's something cool to see. And when I taught high school, I taught history, and this is one of those historical styles that I just absolutely love. It's super approachable. That they are big. They are bigger beers. They are 7% beers and whatnot, and some bigger because you can get into Doppelbock and whatnot. But the real classic Doppelbock is just this densely toasty, bready, rich, and then with a lower bitterness that helps to imply a little bit deeper sweetness with it as well. And but one of my favorite things is, it's still intended to be drank in a liter, right? And so like you have to maintain drinkability. Some of the things that we do as American brewers is we take a classic style and then make it bigger, and that's great. But you can also at times lose some drinkability.
By bigger, you mean
higher ABV, sweeter. That's making it more bold, and I always love classic interpretations of this beer style, which William Goat is, and it's just that big malt showcase, toasty edges of caramel, just enough bitterness to balance. It's a style that I absolutely love.
You haven't stopped smiling since you started talking about it. So tell us a little bit about, because it's a very historic beer, as you just said. Why do you think it is? Is it the Germanic heritage, you think, that brings it into Cincinnati so prevalently?
Yeah, I think so. And, I have a buddy of mine that lives a little bit, I live out in the sticks. He lives a little bit closer to downtown. But, the German history and heritage here really runs deep. Something that was interesting, there's Old St. Mary's downtown, I think, is one of the few churches left in the country where you can actually go and hear German mass. So they actually speak German in mass, which is pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, those roots run deep. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I think you see that when Oktoberfest comes to town too.
Sure.
When is BockFest?
It's coming up this weekend.
That's right.
It's coming up this weekend.
First full weekend of March is what the people online are saying. So I don't actually have a date in my head of when that is, but we'll publish this day after tomorrow. So I guess if you're listening to this, we recorded it yesterday. Absolutely. But yeah, so the first full weekend of March is when it is.
Yeah.
I know this beer has been so popular for you guys that you had to do something for us today just to try it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make more next year. It's been flying out the doors for us here because we have the 2 tap rooms where you can come in and get beer on draft, but also you can we sell to keg accounts around really all over the state, and we've had definitely a spike in interest in that beer around this time of year. So we just have that beer in can right now, and we're running low. So we're gonna have to make some larger volume next year.
You're not going to be at the festival.
No, we're not a sponsor.
You'll have other people serving William Goat.
William Goat might be around at some of the area bars, but we're not formally in BockFest. Yeah.
Cool. Go ahead.
Because, it's weird. When I first started my first couple of boxes, like I didn't like it, but now it's like maybe because I'm just getting older, it's just becoming better and I'm enjoying it. I think that's also a thing with the craft beer you see today is that you see these generations that are getting older, but they're also going down a little bit and liking the traditional styles. Are you seeing that as well?
I think so. And I know when I first started getting into home brewing and craft beer, I wanted the biggest, most outrageous beers I could get my hands on. And then kind of as time goes by, I was looking for something a little bit more simple. Maybe something that lends itself to 2 pints rather than 1. Something that can be a bit more on the refreshing side and balanced side. So yeah, I think that's a really natural progression. Definitely.
And I agree. There's still some days I just want the heavy stuff, but also at the same time I still like being able to drink a beer and be able to go home now without crashing on Noah's couch because it was too heavy.
Absolutely.
I don't.
Absolutely.
but you were talking about your second location. So how did Westchester come up for you guys, and was there any concerns going into a second location, or you feel like you were like, we were going to be okay, especially with Westchester being I feel like it's one of the highest growing places in Cincinnati because you're always seeing things open.
Yeah,
Bash Pro Shop just opened up, and it just keeps getting bigger in there.
Literally shared parking lot, basically with Bass Pro. So it's right there. You can see Top Golf from right there. Yeah, and so Westchester, and I think the really easy answer is it is that place that's growing so much. We have a really solid support base there, and it was a good fit for us. From a business standpoint, the most profitable thing we do is sell pints of beer in-house. When we sell a keg out to distro, it's a different level of margin, right? And so having another location like that is a plus on that side, but it also is an opportunity to we're running our own kitchen there as well, and we've been able to do a wide range of food there. I've eaten over there a few times. They're doing a great job. Cool stuff. I've little
passed
bit
by it many times and it always looks packed.
Yeah. It's a great spot. It's a great spot, and so we're really excited about it. Really, just late last year that it opened. So yeah,
you definitely see a lot of breweries nowadays opening their. They used to have like a partner or a food truck, and now they're like going, "Hey, we can create food." I think that's just the natural progression of breweries that said, "Hey, we would never have food." They were like, okay, we're having food trucks. And then they were like, oh, okay, I guess we're making our own food now.
Yeah. And I think it's some of that natural evolution. I think as the craft beer scene is maturing, you have to do potentially more things than you did in the past. Sometimes you could get away with, and a lot of people do and probably will continue to, have great partnerships formed with food trucks and things like that. But that can be a difficult thing too. You know what I mean? With finding them, finding good partnerships with them, because it's a whole nother layer, right? Because it's not like they're your employees. Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
You don't have to rely on. I think if you have your own kitchen and your own staff, you can guarantee your customers will have something to eat. Whereas if you're depending on a food truck, you can't always assume they'll be there, or the customer will always want to eat what's there.
Sure.
And then this actually is sort of what Crooked Handle told us during our first season. They were basically saying that, like, if it's better to have someone in your tap room than have to go somewhere else to eat and then potentially not come back.
Right.
And so I think in a lot of ways, the breweries that are like Mad Tree, who just opened up their own kitchen, or Sonder, or all the other ones that we could talk about, I think that they're making the smartest play by making sure, or almost mandating, that customers are knowledgeable of what that is they could have before they even drive here. You know what I mean?
And I do think too, there's a larger and larger push, as and I used the term before, but it was what Bart Watson said, who's the chief economist for the Brewers Association. The industry is maturing. It's not a rocket ship to the moon anymore. The growth is not going straight up anymore. And I was listening to an interview a couple of years ago, I believe, with some folks from Other Half, and they were saying that they're in the hospitality industry. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, if you have great beer, you're going to be fine. But there's layers to what it takes to do this business well, right? Great beer doesn't fix your accounting. It does, you know what I mean? Different things like that. So that mindset of saying that it is a hospitality company, I think, speaks more broadly to the entire experience that somebody can have when they come to your place.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I was so we had this guy named Denny. He was a graphic designer for us. He made our logo.
Shout out to Denny.
Denny, yeah. He's a 50-year-old dad now. But so he has, for drinking purposes, he will go to Kroger and try some stuff. So he contacted me one day. He's like, I had this beer at Kroger. He's like, it was amazing. He's like, it's someplace near Kings Island, Sanders, something like that. Or something. He's like, you You Gotcha or something. I was like, it's You Betcha from Sonder. I was like, it's a great beer.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the next one we're trying.
What a great transition.
Yeah, that was very good. That was, I'm
Holy
impressed.
cannoli.
I'm impressed.
I'll cheers to that.
So yeah, You Betcha is our hazy IPA, and hazy has really taken over the scene the last several years, and the way I like to look at hazy IPA, and especially towards trends over the last several years, I think there's an increased demand for approachable beer. Okay. And that can come in many shapes and sizes, but I think that hazy IPA is it's the approachable IPA. A lot of times when we talk about IPA and we talk about hoppiness, or this beer is too hoppy for me, there's three elements to quote unquote hoppiness. There's hop flavor, hop aroma, and hop bitterness, right? I think there are some people that do not enjoy bitterness as much as some others, right? But I think flavor and aroma people can really appreciate, because we can get these beautiful tropical botanical notes off of hops. And New England IPA is kind of the poster boy for that. And so for us, it's a 6.5% hazy, and so it's going to be that golden color. The gold is bolstered by the haze, but it's soft, round, tropical. We use Citra in that beer. And it has kind of this nice OJ type approachability to the beer. And it's just super drinkable.
Yeah.
It's my favorite hazy IPA in the Cincinnati area.
Oh, awesome. Good to hear.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but speaking of other beers, you do a lot of beers for Kings Island.
Mm-hmm.
Blake, why don't you take over here?
This is definitely a special place in my heart because I've been going here since '99. So
nice.
So how did
and getting gold passes
gold passes, which I failed to do this year, but I'll still go.
Wait, you've been going here since 1999?
Kings Island.
Oh, I thought you meant Sonder. I was like, I think you just turned 30.
How did
that happen?
I remember my parents took me there right when Sotheby's opened. That's when I got through all that. But tell us about the marketing with Kings Island and how that all came out, because that's an awesome venue, because you always see places going to like sporting arenas and stuff like that, but you don't really hear about the amusement park business.
And I also know, like, growing up and going to Kings Island, blue ice cream was a huge thing, and the first beer you guys made with them was the blue ice cream beer.
Yeah. And so blue ice cream was a big hit, and all those have gone over well. It's been a really fun partnership. I think it's one of those things, obviously we have proximity to the park, but it's one of those things when you can combine what you like to do at the brewery with that almost like that collaborative type concept, with taking some things that the theme park is known for, and then finding fun things to do with beer from that. It's something where it's interesting for the brew house to tackle challenges like that. And then again, it's just a beneficial relationship.
So did they reach out to you guys, or did you reach out to them?
I'm not certain. I'm not certain how that went. If I had to guess, I would say that we reached out because we have some great people on the sales and marketing side, but not completely sure. But yeah, we've been doing some stuff. We've been doing some things with them for years now. And so, because
like I said, the blue ice cream, the one you guys did for Orion that was a really good lager, and this last one, I really enjoyed that one too because of strawberry. But you had that funnel cake. It actually tastes exactly what it says and that's one of my favorite things about my favorite breweries are when they say something, it tastes like something, it actually does taste like,
Yeah, definitely.
I do remember drinking the strawberry funnel cake last year and just tasting the topping of strawberry jam or jelly on the syrup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it was very, very true to its name for sure.
Do you guys have something in the works this year?
Actually we are. It looks like we're going to be taking another swing at blue ice cream this year.
Oh, nice.
Okay. So I don't know how It might be a little bit of a scoop, but yeah. Oh, no pun intended. I talk a lot, and sometimes when you just say enough words, one comes out at the right time.
We are glad to be interviewing you. I told you beforehand that this was not going to be a CNN interview. Guess what? It is.
Now, with you guys being in Kings Island and Cedar Fair being this huge amusement park chain, have you guys ever thought about reaching out to like Cedar Fair, trying to get it to go all over? Or
yeah, I'm not certain. I think for right now we kind of like that local partnership, and it's one of those things where it's I think one of the big craft beer things is that putting down roots and connecting with the community around you. So yeah.
Now, do you also see like a trend since you've been doing that people from the park comes back over to try it? Or
that stuff always plays out well. Definitely.
Okay, I'm excited about this fourth beer. So tell us, because I love barrel age, I love barley wines, everything in it. So
a tip of the hat to a couple guys in the brewery, Jeff and Matt, which are they've really taken over the barrel program, and this is a double barrel aged barley wine. So it would be Family Tradition is the base barley wine. And then, and so when we say double barrel aged, typically we'll have a beer in barrel for anywhere from, 10 to 24 months. Okay. And I think the best way to think about a barrel when you're thinking about barrel aging a beer is a barrel is an ingredient. It's going to give you the character of the spirit, and then it's often going to add notes of vanilla, coconut, sometimes deeper roasted notes, things like that. So as a beer is in a barrel, it's extracting flavor and aromas from that barrel. So over time, that barrel has less capacity for flavor infusion, right? So when you double barrel age something like this, you're putting it into a fresh barrel again. And so you're able to magnify that barrel characteristic in a beer like this. So
is there certain barrels you like using for this, or you're not allowed to say what you use?
We've got a wide range. The specific barrels that went into this beer, I'm unsure of. Matt and Jeff would definitely know. But we have anything from Buffalo Trace barrels to I know we have some peach brandy barrels down there right now. We have what were some of the other cool ones? We just got some vanilla extract barrels, some rum barrels. So those blends can come from a wide variety of spirits and things like that. So.
Now, how does it work if you do a barrel of Buffalo Trace or Jack Daniels or whoever? Do you have to give them some money because you're using their? I mean, I know this is really deep in the weeds, but I'm just sort of wondering how that would work from a business standpoint. Do you have to share the profits because you're using their label to attract potential bourbon drinkers?
Yeah, and I think that's there's kind of a line there where I don't believe that that stuff officially goes on. So we end up buying the barrel directly from the supplier. That's the idea, because all those barrels can only be used once.
Gotcha.
All right. So especially if you're talking about, especially bourbon, right? So bourbon is a single use new, I believe, heavy char barrel. Maybe it's medium char, but American oak. And so they age their spirit in that, they empty it, and then they don't have another use for it. And so it creates this secondhand market where craft breweries will come get those barrels wet, so they're still fully hydrated and not leaking. When you pull that bung on it and look in there, you love to see that football shape worth of spirits in there. And then you get them purged with CO2, and you get your beer in there. And then you wait. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, cool. So we are running out of questions here. We're sort of at the picket line, or no, at the finish line, I guess. Is really what I meant to say. I guess I had politics on my brain.
We're seeing it. We're seeing it.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
That's right.
Is Sonder working on anything new, whether it's a new beer or any new events that are exciting that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so we are going to have a really exciting festival this July. It's going to be a fruit beer festival.
Oh,
we're going to
There you go,
have
Noah.
you have my attention.
We're gonna have live music, and we're real details on that will be coming out soon. But yeah, and then we always do our Oktoberfest here in the fall. We have plans of ramping up. So we have our essentially our 30 barrel system, and then we also have some 15 barrel tanks that we can do half batches in, and that is our fresh picks section of the brewery where we do smaller run limited release stuff. We're going to be doing some more of that this coming year to keep some new and innovative things coming out of that small batch program. So yeah, there's just always stuff coming up next. So
Talk to us about your Oktoberfest, because I've heard a lot about it, but it's because it's after the big one in Cincinnati that some people might not really know about.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot about.
They do. We have it's a big event here. There's a lot of folks that come here for it. We have a whole lineup of beers, including obviously our Oktoberfest. And I don't know. It's just a good time. I mean, at least a few thousand people come through, and it's just a good time. There's food. I know Chase preps up a special wooden barrel that they tap on site and pour pints off of, and it's just a good time. It's just a good time.
One thing I've noticed when we were talking about festivals and stuff like that is that you got the two major ones, but you have a lot of these smaller ones. Like I sent him a message the other day about this Oakley Fest, but you see all these other festivals starting to build. Do you think that's a trend that's going to keep growing and growing in Cincinnati?
Yeah, it really could be. I came from the Michigan craft beer scene has been around for a long time. And yeah, it's been around a long time, and they have a lot of very well-established festivals. The Michigan Brewers Guild does their winter beer festival, their summer beer festival, obviously around the seasons. But Winter Beer Fest, when it's 0 degrees in Michigan, they'll still put 6,000 people through that festival in a day. It's unbelievable. It's outside too. It's wild. But I always think there's room for that stuff. And anytime you can put together a compelling reason to get people together, obviously beer is pretty compelling, but live music and fun and all that stuff. Yeah, I think there's always room for that.
Oh, Eric knows that. Eric's the musician of the group.
Oh, nice.
So we are sitting at this really cool table with some elbow podcast microphones and elbow holders. That's what I meant to say. But so talk to us a little bit about the Sonder Stories podcast, because, I think it's really cool. I understand that it's about Sonder people and Sonder stories.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sonder beers.
Yeah, no. And it's I think it's a really cool thing that the company decided to start doing when they were getting rolling. And, the whole idea behind Sonder is that everybody has their own perspective, their own story, right? And it's unique. And I think it serves very well as a way of finding out the background on anything from the opening of the place to various beers, stories behind names or specific styles, things like that. I think anytime that you can help your consumer base have an opportunity to connect to you, right? And I think the personal side of things, the stories is what does, help to facilitate that connection.
Cool. The last thing that I wanted to make sure that our listeners were able to hear is, before we started recording, you were telling us about how Womp Womp, your gluten intolerance, was allowing you to drink beer with this sort of, I'm assuming, new way of brewing a gluten-free beer.
Yeah. So within the last year, I kind of found out that my wife's a nurse and she's smart and she helps me out. And we kind of figured out that I developed a gluten intolerance intolerance. And so there is a product on the market called Brewer's Clarex, which is actually an enzyme that's added to the fermenter. It does not make it to where you can call the product gluten-free or make any guarantees about who can or can't drink it, because that's all very, very important, legal things, right?
Sure.
But for me personally, and the way my sensitivity to gluten is, I find that when we brew with that enzyme, it actually breaks down the gluten molecule, and it was originally meant to help make clearer beer, and it's kind of this offshoot. It creates a gluten reduced beer. So in those instances, I can have some beers that way.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so it's definitely been something that I've had to adjust to, and it's good to be able to have a good sized team like we have here to be able to get enough noses and palates on beers as they go through the process.
Super cool. And are you making these beers for public consumption?
Well, actually, the first beer that we used Clarex in was a beer that a Munich Dunkel that's actually in fermenter right now. So that'll be the first beer that I'm going to be able to drink since working
you're
here.
So thirsty.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us, how can people find you specifically? I'm going to ask you this question twice. So first, how can we find Adam Makes Beer?
Sure.
And then secondly, how can we find Sonder Stories and all the other Sonder content?
Definitely. Well, if you have interest in any, kind of behind the scenes brewing educational type stuff, over on Adam Makes Beer on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, I release information on all those platforms. I do full brew day series, technique video, tutorial videos, things like that. And I do a couple of live stream podcasts every month as well, so you can check those out too. And then as far as Sonder goes, you can follow us on social media at Sonder Brewing, at Sonder Tap House, Sonder Stories. Those are all great ways to follow along and see what we have going on.
Great. Well, Adam Mills, Director of Brewing Operations at Sonder Brewing. Go ahead.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
We're sitting here right next to William Goat, a cutout of William Goat, and your very popular Bock beer. So I've been to Sonder many times. I bought their beer many times. I think we could finish this by saying, "I'll be Bock."
So Adam Mills, Director of Brewing Operations at Sonder, thank you so much for hosting us here at the brewery. We hope to see you at BockFest. I know we won't, but I wrote it down and I just read it. We'll be Bock.
Sounds good.
Bock.
Thanks, guys.